Welcome to Culture, Worldview, and Origins. We're Tim and Holly Nyquist. This series is on critical thinking skills in science. And we've been going over critical thinking. We've been going over knowledge. That's what this chapter is on. Chapter 6 is on knowledge and wisdom. And I'm going to take a little diversion here just for a little bit because of the field that I actually work in is education. So I'm going to look at how critical thinking is applied to education. Now, later on in a different session, we're going to see that critical thinking is actually applied to 5 different disciplines, and each discipline defines critical thinking a little differently according to their discipline. So we're going to get into knowledge and wisdom. We're going to continue session number 4, but we're going to look at critical thinking and knowledge based in education. How does that look? What does that look like compared to what we had on a previous session of knowledge, of being book, of being studying, of being almost detached from life experiences. Critical thinking and knowledge. What we're going to look at is what's called Bloom's taxonomy. It was developed in the 1950s by actually a group of people in education that was looking at how to move students from basic skills to higher skills. And the higher skills would be what's considered critical thinking. Using Bloom's taxonomy of thinking skills, the goal is to move students from lower to higher order thinking. And again, this is Western, so it's sequential and it's hierarchy and it's moving at different levels. And we're going to get into this and look at it, but there's others that are saying, no, it's not sequential. It's not one after another. You address all these different skills and try to develop them together. So here is Bloom's taxonomy on one side here on the left, and then there is Bloom's taxonomy revised in the early 2000s. And what they did is they changed it from a static noun of just knowledge to a verb of action, of remembering. And they've reordered it a little bit. So we have knowledge. Just knowledge is the bottom of the pyramid, which meaning that just to have information for information's sake is not that useful. And so knowledge, to be useful, there must be comprehension of that knowledge, meaning understanding what that knowledge means and how that should affect you and how that will change how you do things in the future. And that moves up from comprehension. If you comprehend the knowledge, then you make application of that knowledge. And then following the application, you have an analysis of that application and of the cause and the effect of it and what might need to be adjusted. Then you analysis too is taking things apart, analyzing things. And so once you take it apart, then you go up to synthesis, which is putting it back together, but maybe in a different way, so that you're taking an application of in one area and you're synthesizing it and making it apply to another area. And so that is synthesis. And then you evaluate, how did that go and what other changes could you make? So you're evaluating. So this is critical thinking, which many have specified as application, analysis, and synthesis are the 3 main critical thinking that need to move the students from just knowledge to understanding the knowledge, comprehension, to applying the knowledge to analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Now, in the early 2000s, there was a little swap here of the sequence, where it was, and the verb changed from knowledge was changed to remembering, comprehension was changed to understanding, application was changed to applying, and analysis to analyzing, but then they swapped the top two. Synthesis to evaluating. In other words, they dropped evaluating from one side, dropped it down here, evaluate, and then create. And so your final then production on the revised side is you are creating based on your evaluation of previously. Where this one here, you synthesize and then you evaluate. So I'm not too sure because they keep the same concepts, but they just changed, swapped the evaluation on the left and demoted it to number 5 or so on the right. So that is the pyramid, the Bloom's taxonomy of what a teacher is to do in sequence of their students, and that we're gaining knowledge, but we need to understand that knowledge, and understanding that knowledge to the level of applying it, and then analyzing that knowledge, taking it apart, looking at it, understanding it, and then doing a synthesis of that knowledge into a different format, into a different application, different setting. And then an evaluation, evaluating how that went. And so those are that is Bloom's taxonomy. And that would be an education, an application of critical thinking, of using not just knowledge, but you have knowledge or information, and then you have understanding of it, then you apply it, analysis and synthesis. So that is what is considered Bloom's taxonomy. Now we're just going to go over each stage and what it means. Knowing knowledge would be gathering and reporting information and displaying mastery of basic knowledge or course content. But again, if there's not an understanding of it, you can display something, but it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't affect you in any way. Now, understanding, the second level up, would be then to use the facts to predict, infer, order, compare, using knowledge in different contexts. Okay, so that is why if you understand it, if you comprehend it, then you can cross-apply it to another setting. And that is what understanding means, which then leads us to the next level, which is applying, which would be using knowledge to solve problems or do something. So in other words, all this knowledge that we're generating that's going out of date with half-lives in the medical field every 2 years, and engineering field maybe every 4 to 5 years, we need to apply it. We need to do something with it. What good is it? If it's not good for anything, then let's not pursue it. Let's not just add knowledge onto knowledge to have knowledge. Step number 4, the pillar up the pyramid, would be analyzing, which would be breaking down problems, data, facts, looking for patterns, seeing patterns, and components in order to understand the parts and how they fit together into the whole. So in other words, analyzing is taking apart. Analyzing is looking at all the parts and the pieces and maybe putting them together in a different order, maybe putting them together to serve a different purpose. Now again, that's Western, because in a non-Western format, taking things apart, if they're a visual processor, is very difficult to take a picture apart and to reassemble the picture into a collage that looks like something else. Step number 5, evaluating. assessing and making value judgments, solving problems in an original way, seeing from multiple perspectives, and using sophisticated reasoning. Okay, again, would be one of the elements of critical thinking based on Bloom's taxonomy in education. Level number 6, the last level, creating. Generalizing about facts, knowledge across more than one situation. Seeing larger relationships, creating new knowledge, and drawing conclusions. So basically what this is a movement. It's a verb. It's their actions that are taken in real life situations in the classroom where you're applying, you're analyzing, you're evaluating, you're creating their movement. So it's not just theoretical knowledge. It's not theoretical facts that are from book or from just a detached study, but it's something of action verbs. So you can see that is a little different from the explanation, definition given for science, given through the scientific method. Here again is the pyramid of you have knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The other side, which is a revision of the Bloom's taxonomy, is starting at the bottom, is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Again, I would say that those verbs would describe more of a Western cultured student, of a student that is doing these things, is applying, analyzing, taking things apart, putting them back together in a different way, synthesizing or creating something new and different, which is difficult to do because in a non-Western setting, you're trying to conserve. You're looking at tradition and you're conserving that tradition. You're not trying to reorganize it into something new. So this is a Western schematic. Like I said, it's sequential, it's hierarchy, it's building one after the other, and it's creating something new. It's progressive. Now this is a quote from another educator in the area. He says, the problem with both these versions, that both versions present a false vision of learning. Learning is not hierarchy or linear. This graphic gives the mistaken impression that these cognitive processes are discrete, that it's possible to perform one of these skills separately from the other, and that you have to learn these in sequence, and you can't practice this skill without learning the four in between. So that's what this one author has noted. And I would say that his objection is valid, but that his objection also has a different perspective to it. And I would say the perspective is more non-Western because of the problem is that present a false vision of learning. Learning is not hierarchy, linear, progressive. Those are Western. He goes on, learning in life is dynamic, synergistic, interrelated, and deeply connected to creation. It is never a static pyramid. Okay, so even though you can propose another model, the critical thinking model proposed by education would be through Bloom's taxonomy. Not everybody within that educational realm agrees on that Bloom's taxonomy is the answer because that reflects more of a Western mindset. He goes on to say, disconnected knowledge from life is more like just information, something that we can live without. And that was my comment about the half-life of information from the previous session. If the half-life is so rapidly passing, then what good is that information doing for me when my quality of life expectancy is not projected to even increase? So it's kind of like, okay, so then what is all this information about? Why are we bombarded with so much information when a lot of it is perishable? A lot of it isn't even going to be true or superseded in just a few years. This is another, looking at knowledge. Our critical thinking is the pursuit of knowledge. It's the pursuit of reliable knowledge. And what is that going to do to us? Why do we need that reliable knowledge? Why do we need to pursue it? And can I get reliable knowledge from other sources or not? That's what we're about. That's what this series is on. Critical thinking skills in science. Chapter 6, knowledge and wisdom. This is session number 4. Thank you again for accompanying me, and we're going to continue for a number of sessions more in this area. We're going to be going into the non-Western perspective. Thank you again for joining me.